Before we start our first topic today, I would also like to warmly welcome Michal Horvat, who is the Director of Economic and Monetary Analysis Department, with his opening remarks. So, Michal, the floor is yours.
Right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Diana, for the kind introduction. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to deliver these opening remarks. My name is Michal Horvat. I'm Head of Economic and Monetary Analysis at the bank. I basically want to talk about four things in my remarks. Why do central banks invest in analytical capacities? It's an obvious question, but I'd like to give brief answers to that. What are the factors that determine what kind of analysis is being performed in a bank? It's the second topic. What motivated the analysis that my colleagues are going to present to you? Why are we engaged in this agenda at all? And finally, I will share a few points on why I think this the material my colleagues are going to present might be useful for you. So central banks usually invest in analytical capacities, obviously, to support decision making. The expectation is that through better analysis, we will be able to perform our mandate better. But sometimes it's just the motivation is more general. It's about developing an understanding of broader phenomena that we see in the society, which may provide an interesting context for the work that we do in terms of our mandate. But sometimes it's really just about delivering public good to the society. So what are the factors that determine the type of analysis that we do? It's the type of the mandate of the central bank. More precisely, it can be the type of monetary policy regime that you operate in. It's different when you have a fixed exchange rate and when you have inflation targeting, or in our case, we're in a monetary union. It can be the type of the economy. Most of us, I guess, belong to the category of small open economies. It's different from if you're a large economy. There are important sort of structural factors that determine the type of work that we might be doing. Some economies are resource rich. That has implications for the analysis. In our case, we're a rapidly aging society that provides an interesting backdrop to a lot of our work. The depth of financial markets is usually an important factor. Or, for example, the kind of short-term challenges that our economies might be dealing with. Then often the type of analysis that we do is determined or influenced by sort of strategic considerations at the highest level within the bank. What the bank management wants to communicate, how it wants to be seen by the outside world, whether locally in the country or internationally. Another important factor, perhaps, is the state of academia locally. If your university sector is as bad as the one in Slovakia, then you actually have to do a lot of the work, lot of the public good function yourself. You cannot really rely on other people to do some of the work that you can then build on. And sometimes the motivation for analytical work is supply driven. An interesting data set comes up, or something interesting happens in the economy, and it would be just a waste of resources not to pick that up and do some analysis on that. So what is the motivation behind the analysis my colleagues are going to present today and tomorrow? There are several. Obviously, you're not going to see everything that we do in our department. We do quite a lot, and I saw in your initial feedback that some of you wanted to hear more about DSG modeling and these things. So we do that kind of stuff as well. But the focus in these next 2 days is going to be a bit more narrow. It will be mostly on monetary transmission. So why are we operating in this area in our department? So one of the reasons is strategic. At the bank level, we made the strategic decision to engage more at the euro area level, to be more involved in discussions in Frankfurt, but also to raise the awareness about the contribution euro area monetary policy makes to the local economies, to enhance the understanding of how the decisions made in Frankfurt translate into sort of real life experience in Slovakia. Then obviously there were day-to-day challenges that motivated a lot of the analysis. In the title itself is about monetary policy in challenging times. So the team that you're going to meet has been together for about 3 years. It's a lot of fresh new faces in our institution. But basically from these 3 years, about a year and a half, we were worried about downward de-anchoring of inflation expectations, and then we very rapidly switched to worrying about upwards de-anchoring of inflation expectations. But in both cases, inflation expectations play an important role. So we needed to develop a better understanding of inflation expectations at the euro area level, but also in Slovakia. Also, about 1.5 years, we were worried about whether the rates are low enough in the euro area, but also locally in Slovakia, if the economy is receiving enough support from monetary policy. And then the last year and a half, we are worried about whether the interest rates are high enough, or in fact whether they aren't too high. So for some time we studied various shadow rates. Now we are studying fundamental yields, whether we can justify for example, the government bond yields that we see by fundamentals, or whether it's slightly overblown or the transmission is not happening fully. And the third thing that motivated the analysis of my colleagues is that we had a unique opportunity to study the transmission of euro area monetary policy to Slovakia. We, as a central bank, obviously, we sit on a lot of data. We have very detailed data about banks, what they do. We have detailed data about loans and such like. And as it happens, not all of our banks joined a program or took advantage of a program that was introduced at the euro area level. So that created a nice opportunity to do some sophisticated analysis of the impact of monetary policy on the economy. Why, you might ask yourself, is this potentially useful for you? So my answer to this is threefold. First of all, the techniques that we use are more or less universal. They can be applied in different contexts as well. In fact, some of the work that we are doing is coming from different areas. The analysis on the behavior of local banks in Slovakia was actually motivated by a Bank of England study on the impact of quantitative easing. We applied it in a slightly different area.
May I interrupt you?
There are interesting questions about spillovers, whether your exchange rate is fixed or whether you're in a float. You are basically, it's important for you to understand the underlying forces. Your economy is probably effectively attached to a bigger entity. If you're a small open economy, and understanding what's happening in that bigger entity is very important to basically forecast or to understand the processes in your own economy. And finally, I think the story of these guys you're going to see in a moment is very interesting also from the point of view of institution building. So we at our central bank did not have a unit dedicated to monetary policy over the last decade, surprising as it may sound. So after we joined the the euro area, somehow the discussion about monetary policy was sort of in our minds delegated to Frankfurt, and it was deemed at the managerial level unsatisfactory that we just completely forget about this topic, and that's why we made the strategic decision to get engaged. And as a part of that, we created a new team from basically scratch, and we developed the agenda of that team. We made sure we have the right set of skills in place to be able to deal with that agenda, and I think that's also can serve as an inspiration for you in the future. But I'll stop here, and I think my colleagues are going to have many more interesting things to say over the next 2 days, so I'll leave the floor to them. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Michal, very much for your really fully accomplished remarks, and I hope you will enjoy both live sessions. I read the note from Nicholas that he has some slight echo. We have checked it on our side, but it should be okay. But if some of you also have slight echo, just write to me. Now it's better, Nicholas is written. So thank you very much, Nicholas, for that. And so now it's time to pass the floor to Adriana Lojšová. Adriana is the head of our monetary policy section, and she will present us our insights and experiences on the monetary policy in challenging times. So, Adriana, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Diana, and as well, Michal, for the kind introduction, and as well for giving a glimpse of what is coming during these 2 days of the seminar. So in the past years, there have been several global and sectoral shocks that have impacted supply, trade, and economic activity. These adverse shocks, such as COVID-19, Russian war in Ukraine, energy crisis, and lately financial market turmoil, has impacted different countries in different ways. But the common feature across the different countries remains inflation. Inflation stays stubbornly high. So in this webinar, I would like to present the challenges that the central bankers face and are facing in this difficult time. I can imagine that our experience can be extremely valuable to you and as well to institutions of the similar size to the National Bank of Slovakia. And we would be actually at this stage, I would like to encourage you to share your experience. I think when we went through the list of the participants, we have seen that around experts from the national banks, around 10 different national banks has joined this event. So for us, would be very pleased to hear your insights, exchange ideas, and explore the latest thinking on monetary policy in your countries. So, of course, there is many topics we could cover in these 2 days, and we wanted to remain focused. So we asked you on the topics you would like us to deep dive and to describe more in details. So some of you kindly requested from us to learn more about the ECB policies, discuss current monetary policy challenges and the ways to resolve them. So this will be actually addressed in this presentation of the webinar. Then there were requests on how monetary policy framework could be improved. Actually, this was a challenge which even Michal has mentioned in his introductory remarks. So we are a new department. We had to develop the new analytical toolboxes in the bank. So you will get some more information on the analytical toolboxes used in the bank during the 2 presentations tomorrow. There have been requests to address more details about the monetary policy, either to be conventional or unconventional tools in Slovakia or in the ECB. So this will be actually covered already after my presentation. My colleague Alena Kišová will share our experience with the TELPROS-3 operation, which has been introduced by the ECB during the pandemic. Actually, they have been introduced earlier, but the condition has been eased during the pandemic. And Alena will explain how was the experience in Slovakia, how this has impacted the bank lending in Slovakia. And tomorrow in the second session, we have our colleague Braňo Albert, who will actually share experience about the ECB purchase programs. There have been several requests on the market indicators, so what kind of indicators we follow in our analysis, what we follow to assess the transmission mechanisms. As Michal has mentioned, this is a very big topic for us. And as well to look at the analytical approaches for analyzing inflation and inflation expectations. So these two topics, they will be covered by our colleague Juraj Falat, and this will be part of the first presentation tomorrow morning. Basically, you requested more policy insight, but we will as well provide some technical details, so you will get both from both worlds. And I hope we can provide you with the nice recipes from our kitchen here in the Slovak National Bank. I would like to set up the expectations because, of course, we will. As already mentioned, we will not cover everything, and what we are not going to cover today is forecasting and projection, which has been requested by some of your colleagues. Just to a side note, this is planned, it's in the pipeline, but at this stage I cannot tell you at what stage Slovak National Bank would offer this kind of webinar. Of course, we do the projections and forecasting, but this is not part of our department. Introduction. So Michal has a very nice intro to our institution, to our department, and to our colleagues. So what I would like to say, we are a small country which is participating in big monetary policy decisions, especially of the last 3.5 years, sorry, which has been quite challenging for us. So what you can see on the picture is the Governing Council of the ECB, which is meeting every 6 weeks, and they discuss and assess the monetary and economic developments and then make a monetary policy decision. So what is interesting, maybe for you, the information is that before 2015, every governor had a single voting right at the Governing Council, and this has changed after 2015 when the Lithuania has joined the euro area, and the voting has changed in the sense that for the 5 biggest countries, which is Germany, France, Italy, Spain and Netherlands, share 4 voting rights, and then the remaining, now I have to do a bit of calculations because remaining countries now are 15, yes, because we have the 20th country joining this January in Croatia. So remaining 15 countries are sharing 11 voting rights. And this is basically rotated on the monthly basis. If you ask me what is the difference, for example, with the FOMC, the Fed, there is the rotation which is done on the annual basis, but the system is relatively similar. So as already Michal mentioned, we have been, as a department, we started to operate in February 2020. And as you all know, in March, the pandemic started and we all went to the lockdown. So our department has been truly baptized by the fire. I mean, we have been going through a lot, and through the resources, from time to time, you can see there is 3 colleagues sitting next to me. So this is 80% of our department. So it were truly challenging times for us. So in this presentation, what I would like to address are 4 questions. Is what are our what, why, and how? And so the first questions which I would like to address, what does our department needs to understand and why? Second question, what are the key topics and challenges in the recent years? How do we respond to them analytically? Third question. And last one, which I think can be very interesting for you, since I assume, but at the beginning I have mentioned that I will as well like to hear your experience, but maybe even in the terms of like how big is your institution, how big is your department, what kind of analysis you are doing. So the last question would be, which I would like to address in this presentation, how to do monetary policy analysis within a small team or within a small central bank. Disclaimer. So we focus on the euro area in our analysis, but I'm gonna break our own disclaimer, because after me, Alena is having a presentation on the Slovak experience. Branjo will as well have some samples of the experience of the asset purchases for Slovakia. So it's gonna be a nice mix of aggregated euro area analysis and as well some samples from our own country. So the first question, which I would like to answer, is what do we need to understand and why? So DMP is the acronym. Sorry, I just need to quickly think. I'm losing my voice. So DMP is acronym for our monetary policy department. And what we need to understand is the state of the euro area economy and the markets, and because we contribute to the expert discussion and decision on the European level. On the previous slide, I have basically mentioned that we participate at the governing council. I mean, not us, but the governor participate at the governing council meetings, general council meetings, expert group. For example, me and Michal, we are the part of the monetary policy committee. Our colleagues are participating at the expert groups and work stream. And of course, we advise our senior management. So in this presentation, I just don't want to share only the indicator and analysis. This I will leave to my colleagues, which will go truly deeply in our analysis. And I will share experience with the processes. And on the slide, you can see the picture of the team. So my team is much smaller, almost half of this team. So our approach is rather pragmatic to this analysis. And so even Michal has mentioned at the beginning, so what we do, we look what is done by primarily European Central Bank. Then we look at the, for example, research departments of the various commercial banks, and we try to replicate the analysis, interpret them. We are being quite creative and try to look for the quick wins and low-hanging fruits. So the goal is not to, for you, is not to copy us and paste us. I would rather say to be inspired and apply the knowledge to your needs. And I don't want to be this one-way direction. So if we can be inspired by your analysis, that would be actually very much appreciated. I can understand that probably that can be quite heavy during these 2 weeks. I mean, we have prepared quite a lot of material for you, but if you wish to contact us after, I mean, of course, if we would have a physical meeting, we could say, let's discuss during the coffee break, but this is not the case. Of course, we will share our email address, and if you want to share your analysis or you have some follow-up questions, then really feel free to contact us even after this webinar. So the second question, which I would like to address, is what are the key topics and challenges of the recent years? So inflation and financial stability issues are at the front of the of nowadays. So for us central bankers, what is the challenge is to manage the high inflation. So nowadays, basically, the focus is on inflation reduction. And as you know, the monetary policy operates with several legs. So it takes some time to see some results. And of course, we can already say that we are seeing the first glimpse of the results. So, but it's actually, it's difficult to achieve this kind of results when we are experiencing external shocks or factors such as supply chain disruptions or rising commodity prices. As well, central banks, for them important is financial stability mandate. and financial markets became more complex and interconnected during the last years, and the new risk has emerged. That has actually materialized last month when we had seen the banking turmoil in the US with the collapse of the Silicon Valley Bank, and in Europe, in Switzerland. I will address this issue a bit later at this stage of the presentation, so please stay tuned. Then, of course, geopolitical risk and fragmentation. Of course, they have an impact on the global financial markets, trade, and negative spillovers effects on the economy, which is basically the most recent war which we are experiencing now in Europe. There are many other risks. We don't have time to go through all of them, so I will just mention a couple of few, such as technology, fintech, climate change. Climate change is nowadays very much at the as a topic for the central banks, and not as well for the central banks, of course, as well for the other sectors. Deglobalization, which is opposite what was happening before when we have more globalization. Aging of the population. Michal has mentioned we are a country where we are going to really suffer from this challenge. So the labor force participation might be changing. Migration, which is a big challenge as well for Europe, but as well other parts of the world. So, and the last challenge, which is not, so this was actually addressed as well by Michal. Before, we have been experiencing low interest rates, even negative interest rates in the euro area. And this had created challenges such as asset bubbles and risk-taking behavior for the investors. For example, at the ECB, during this time, we have been looking on the implication from the negative interest rates on the bank profitability. So this was a big challenge before. And as said, we are moving from we are living in a very quickly changing environment. So what was the issue a couple of years ago when we have experiencing the deflation risk in the euro area? Now we are experiencing complete opposite situation. So really, times are very challenging, and the volatility and uncertainty in the euro area, not only in the euro area, as well in the world, as well in your countries, is very high. So birth of the inflation. So how did we get here, and how did we move from very low inflation levels to the ultra high? And before I would touch upon this, let me maybe look back to last decades when we have been actually experiencing remarkably stable and low inflation in the advanced economies, as you can see on the right chart. And if you would ask me what are some ingredients of the success, I would name that monetary policy is and was independent from the fiscal policy, that we have a narrow, transparent, and measurable mandate, which is in our case inflation targeting. Of course, for example, Fed has a dual mandate with on top of the inflation targeting with the full employment. Then predictable rule-based policies. So policy rate was the main tool, was the basically part of the conventional monetary policy tools, and asset purchases were predictable. If we look at the different timetables, different times, not the timetables, different times before the financial crisis, or before the collapse of the Lehman Brothers, and after, and then before the pandemic and after the pandemic, which is indicated in the orange, yellow, green color, we can see that inflation in the euro area has now reached the levels which are extremely high. And the highest point in the euro area we have reached last year in October 2022. Almost double-digit inflation, which was 10.6 in the euro area. So if you ask what are the reason or what has caused that we are experiencing these very high levels of inflation in the euro area, our answer would be that it's a combination of several adverse shocks which went in the quick succession. So as you might remember, after the pandemic, when the economy was reopened, and especially European economy, when it was reopened, people were willing to go for holidays. They were easy with spending the money which they have accumulated, forcefully accumulated during the savings during the pandemic. Then basically between the summer 2021 and February 2022, when the invasion of Russia to Ukraine has started, we have experienced shortages of a lot of goods coming from semiconductors, chips, to petrol, to drivers of the trucks. So what we experienced were large supply shocks. So the first was the supply chain bottlenecks. And then after the war, more recently, we have experienced energy and food commodity price surge due to the war. And of course, recently, because of the energy crisis, the government has put some measures in the force. So basically, the decline of the inflation is partially due to the decline in the energy prices as well. The national governments in the euro area put several measures to, for example, to prevent increases of the energy costs for the households. So this has basically this inflationary impact on the inflation during this year. But if we look, I mean, if we think about the outlook of the inflation for the next year, it might have a different impact since these measures might be unwinding. So we are still in, we expect inflation to gradually to fall down, but as said, there are several factors which will be influencing these developments. And another thing which I would like to mention, and it's not on the graph, so you see here the headline inflation for the euro area, which is already declining. But the core inflation in the euro area is still on increasing path. And this is creating some headaches for the central bankers in the euro area. So this is just a visualization what I have been saying on the previous slide. So you can see that basically energy and food, energy in the red colors and the food in the blue colors has been driving the inflation in the euro area. And next slide on the right side is interesting because there you see the composition of the consumer basket. And I'm not sure how you are familiar with the developments within the euro area on the individual level. So what we have seen in the euro area that some countries, for example, Estonia has been experiencing really high levels of inflation, almost up to 25%. And this could be explained how in these countries, like the Baltic countries and Slovakia, is the composition of the basket. So in these countries, actually, the food and energy prices create the biggest weights, and that's why as well these countries has been experiences the highest rates of inflation in the euro area. So here I would like to maybe go one step back, and so I started to tell you that, okay, the first shock which we have experienced in the euro area was COVID-19 crisis, and not only ECB but all central banks around the world took a very swift and powerful action. And in case of the ECB, the three main purposes of these actions were to stabilize the market. So basically, this is the precondition to avoid the fragmentation in the euro area, to provide ample liquidity to the real economy. As already announced, this will be heavily discussed in the second part of this today's seminar by Alena, and to ensure that monetary policy stance is sufficiently accommodative. Maybe this slide looks a bit heavy, but it will become even more heavy, I promise you, so stay tuned. So as said, the extraordinary times require extraordinary measures, and these are the steps which has been actually introduced by the ECB immediately when the corona crisis hit the euro area. So in its meeting of March, on the 20th of March, March 2020, I think it was first meeting was 12th of March, if I'm not mistaken. So ECB has announced expansion of the already existed asset purchase programs, and expanded it by 120 billion euro. Then introduced a new program, which is called PEP, Pandemic Emergency Program, which with the initial envelope of the 750 billion. And then there have been already some lending facilities in place at the ECB, which started to be modified during the pandemic. So the TLTRO III has been recalibrated, and first time in March, with the decision to put the interest rates. So actually the banks were borrowing the liquidity from the ECB for convenient conditions, which were at the beginning set up to 25 basis points below the FR. And that was consequently changed in April. So just 1 month after, ECB has decided to further ease these conditions, additional 25 basis points. So the banks could borrow, not all of the banks, only the banks who would fulfill the criteria could borrow from the ECB for extremely convenient conditions of 1% from the ECB. So this will be the second presentation which we will discuss, and particularly with the focus on the Slovak banking sector, how this has impacting the bank lending activity in terms of the volumes, in terms of the interest rates and bank profitability. You can see the green small sign in this timeline, and this is when we become a full department, because of course when the department was created, it was only me and one colleague, and then we hired the young faces which are sitting here around the table. So we become full force, and we could finally focus and be efficient and effective in our analysis. Then at the end of the year 2020, PEP was extended. PEP was extended before in 2020, mid-2020 by 600 billion, and then additionally by 500 billion at the end of the year, and reached the total envelope of 1.8 trillion, and was originally sought to run until March 2022. We actually, I have seen that we have colleagues as well. Of course, we have colleagues from the non-EU countries around the table. So in the mid of 2021, there have been repo lines which has been extended to Albania, Croatia, to Hungary, Montenegro, Serbia, San Marino. So maybe if some of you is from these countries, I have seen few from the list. Maybe you can share this experience, how it actually was utilized in your country and in your central bank. So this is a heavy slide, even more heavy than the previous one, but I will be very quick here because I mean, I just want you to focus on the colors, not what is, not on all these labels which are in the table. I know there is a lot of acronyms, and even us sometimes we have a headache to remember all. So I can imagine that if you're not working with this, it might be heavy at the first sight. But as I said, just focus on the colors. So the dark orange were the already existing APP programs. The light orange or yellow, I don't know how you see it on your screen. It's the pandemic emergency program, and then the lending facilities in the dark green and swap repo lines in the light green. If you're asking, because I mentioned that there have been two asset programs which are running during the pandemic, one which was existing and one which was introduced. If you're asking what are the differences, so the differences, they lay in the capital key allocation. So the capital key allocation basically is related to the GDP size of the country. And during the pandemic, this has been relaxed for the PEP program because many countries which has been heavily indebted, especially from the South, Europe has experienced increased spreads compared, for example, to benchmark German spread. That's actually what I just wanted to say. So I was bit front-loaded. So here you can see actually the 10-year government spreads of selected countries, the four, let's say, heavily indebted countries in the euro area compared to the German equivalent. As you can see, the COVID-19 crisis had a pronounced impact on the euro area sovereign bond yields. And we have seen on the chart, you can see that the spread has spiked in March, and some countries were hit earlier than the others, causing sovereign debts to verge from previously more closely aligned levels, what you can see at the beginning of the graph. And after the announcement, you can see that the spread has returned to more pre-pandemic levels. I will be a bit faster because I think I have been quite vocal about a lot of these measures which we have taken. So I will skip some of the graphs and go more quickly through the timeline. Summer of the 2021 was more calmer, and there was a first meeting of the ECB in person. ECB has decided about the new monetary policy strategy. The difference from the previous one that we set up the symmetric 2% inflation target over the medium term. And this actually means that any negative or positive deviation from this inflation target would be not desirable. Then before the end and at the beginning of 2022, we started with the reductions of the APP and PEP programs. And I will hide this first part of the chart because it's quite heavy. The war started. So basically at the ECB, we started with the monetary policy tightening, with announcing in July on the interest rates, and actually the first steps were in June, September, October, December of 2022, when we raised the interest rates by 50, 75, 75, and 50, and this year additional 2 times by 50 basis points. So so what you could see and what I was actually trying to deliver with this presentation, that the toolbox has expanded. So the former unconventional policies, which are considered as, for example, interest rates or minimum reserve requirements, has been replaced by new conventional tools or forward guidance, negative interest rates, TLTROs, asset purchases. And these additional tools will be activated whenever we need to protect the smooth transmission of monetary policy across the euro area. This is actually meant for the last package of the case for the TPI and OMT programs. So I'm moving towards the last part of my presentation. So how do we respond analytically to these issues? So communication has become an important tool of monetary policy over the last 2 years. Effective communication can help strengthen the transmission of the monetary policy because we can clarify our policy decisions. And for us, this is we consider this as very important in Slovakia. We are really trying to explain what is going on in Frankfurt to our audience and relatively wider audience. And because of that, actually our language has to be very clear and easily understandable. So what we do, we, of course, we attend the meetings in Frankfurt, we come and we try to analyze the data, sort them, arrange them and present them visually, and of course explain them in the story. And we have introduced in Slovakia a new flagship which is called Frankfurters. Actually, the name sounds quite funny in Slovakia. I will not go into the details because I'm running out of my time. But this is the question you can ask in the coffee break. And just to say that the title, we would not like to take a credit from our director. This is coming actually from him. So we have been implementing his idea in terms of how to communicate to Slovak audience. So I will very quickly run so I can reach the last points of my presentation. So the content is like 50%. So Frankfurters has 3 pages, and we comment on the current issues, monetary policy issues. We have usually a box which is an analytical topic. So this will be parts of the coming presentations by my colleagues, and it's free, as I said, 3 pages. Maximum reading time must be 10-15 minutes. We publish every 6 weeks, 2 weeks after the Governing Council meeting. And if you are interested, I have provided you the link. It's in Slovak version, but you can use the Google translator. And because as well in our team we had a colleague from Germany and he was reading our Slovak Frankfurter. So it's only in Slovak language. And the first, here I have selected a couple of maybe interesting topics. And the first issue we had in February 2021. So of course we were in deep pandemic crisis. So what we address in that issue, we talk about the non-conventional instruments supporting the lending activity and economic activity, TLTRO and PEP. Then when I show you the chart on the inflation expectation, you might remember there was this spike in October 2022. And of course, we address in that issue of the Frankfurters why ECB acts so decisively, even the economy was actually at the time weakening. And I mean, now we have to say, okay, we are looking backwards and, you know, we see all the events evolving, but at that time when it was happening, we didn't know whether there will be recession or not recession. So it was important for us to explain to our audience. And the last issue, which we just published now in April, was related to these recent events, which has happened in US and Switzerland. So so we try to be really topical in this sense. And the last slide, or no, not last slide, the last question, how to do the monetary policy analysis within a small team or central bank. So, I mean, I tell you how we do it, and maybe you can as well elaborate on your side. So since we are a small central bank, small institution, small department, it's wise to concentrate on selected few topics. I mean, if we compare our department, for example, to the ECB, so there is equivalent of the directorate, it would be economic and monetary analysis, which is in the ECB maybe up to 100 people. Then the monetary policy department, which is my department, is maybe up to 40 people. And we are 5 people here in Slovak National Bank. So you can see that it has to be some trade-off. I mean, we cannot be doing everything. So as said at the beginning, we try to look at the analysis, try to talk to the experts from the different central banks. I must say it's not easy. Of course, on certain levels, it's easier to share the knowledge. But for example, if that's why as well, what we have done here in the bank, we have extended our collaboration as well with the academics. this was one of the topics Michal has mentioned, that the academia in Slovakia is maybe not at its best. So we are collaborating with a lot of academics from the different universities and from the different countries. So what I said, we replicate what is done at the ECB, what the other central banks are doing. And our task, and as well, not only us, all central banks, they need to boost public awareness by clearly communicating their action and thus fostering financial education and literacy. There is a lot of aims at the Slovak National Bank where we are increasing the financial education and literacy through different various programs for either younger people in Slovakia or middle-aged older groups. And of course, I have already touched upon this. We are collaborating with expert groups, with work stream. Me and Michal, we are the part of the MPC. So we try to talk to the colleagues, especially from the bigger institutions, whether we could share their analysis and academia.